Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1217B, and today's date is March 1st, 2017, and the title of the episode is One Thing Has Changed. The Deep State Moved Up Its Timetable. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we see out in North Korea the situation is really heating up because we know the United States government central bankers, they've been planning on bringing in the THAAD missile system into the region of South Korea. And we know the land swap deal went through. Now, Russia and China are out there, and they have repeatedly urged Seoul and Washington to reconsider the missile defense system deployment. Now, there was a meeting between the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister and the Chinese Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs. The two sides reiterated their grave concern and strong objection to the THAAD deployment and called on the U.S. and South Korea to respect China's and Russia's reasonable and fair concerns over security and not to threaten the strategic balance in the region. Now, what we're seeing here is that this THAAD missile system is not just for North Korea. It is for China. It is for Russia. And what is happening here is that the Chinese are saying, listen, the THAAD issue, it could result in a boycott by Chinese consumers of everything Korean, including the refusal to choose the country as a tourist destination or to buy goods made in South Korea. And they're saying that the Chinese, they could stop buying South Korean consumer goods such as cars or mobile phones. And this would have a devastating effect on the South Korean economy. And we can see already that this is turning into an economic war, which will then lead to a real war. Now, of course, this is what the neocons, the deep state, the central bankers, this is what they want. They want to push these countries into doing these things. And this has been their plan for quite a while. Now, out in the Middle East, we can see the corporate media, they are spinning everything completely. And we know that the Battle of Mosul is going on. And of course, they're making it seem like everything is fantastic there. The U.S. is bombing so perfectly that nobody's getting hit and things are fantastic. On the other hand, when we hear things where Russia and the Syrian armed forces are bombing Aleppo or Palmyra, they're killing millions or hundreds and hundreds of civilians. And when you look at these articles, like the one from the BBC that says Mosul assault, Iraq troops make headway against the Islamic State, well, they make it seem like everything is fine, that the siege into Mosul is going exactly as planned and nobody's getting hurt. When you compared the same type of article about Russia and Syria, almost every paragraph says that they're killing civilians. But when you look at the bottom of the article that has to do with Mosul, you see the truth. It says, the UN said in late January that almost half of all the casualties in Mosul were civilians. At least 1,096 have been killed and 694 injured across the entire province since the start of October, which shows there are a lot of civilians dying. So when you hear reports out there telling us that Russia is bombing, they're hitting civilians, well, the U.S. is doing the same exact thing. Again, this is war. We all get it. But the United States bombs and missiles, well, guess what? They hit civilians too, and a lot of them. So this is not just one-sided. It's happening on both sides. But what I'm trying to get at is that the corporate media paints a picture that it's only happening to one side. And they're trying to make it look like Russia is evil. They're killing civilians. Assad is evil. They're killing civilians. The United States is having a siege in Mosul, and everything's going perfectly. Nobody's hurt. Except the Islamic State, of course. And as we know, they're airlifting them out of the region and bringing them to different areas. Now, it looks like Russia is preparing for Trump. The Russian Foreign Ministry, they are preparing for a previously agreed meeting between Putin and Trump. And this is no secret that the agreement was reached during their telephone conversation, and we'll have to see when they set the date and when the meeting will actually take place. Now, hopefully this will calm a lot of the things down, but we'll have to wait and see. And as we know, the deep state, the neocons, the central bankers, they don't want things to calm down. They want a war. Any way they possibly can get it, that's what they want. We see that Russia and China, well, they vetoed that draft from the US, UK, and from the rest of the coalition countries where they were going to place sanctions on 11 Syrian military commanders, along with banning the supply of helicopters to its government. And of course, this was all based on fabricated charges of chemical weapons. This is what they were going with. And China and Russia said absolutely not. Now, countries that were supporting the resolutions included America, Britain, France, Italy, Japan, Senegal, Sweden, Ukraine, and Uruguay. Russia, China, Bolivia completely oppose it. Egypt, Ethiopia, they abstained. Now, neocon U.S. envoy Nikki Haley lied because she accused Assad of using chemical weapons despite no evidence proving it. None exists. They didn't produce it. And then she went ahead and blasted Russia and China, disgracefully saying they will cover the backs of their friends who use chemical weapons to kill their own people. Why, again, would Assad kill his own people? They are supporting him. They elected him. It makes no sense for him to turn around and start killing them. He has enough problems with the Islamic State. Now, what we're seeing here is that the Syrian government and the Russian forces, they have captured Palmyra Citadel from the Islamic State. Now, yesterday, we reported on the moderate rebels how they have information and proof that Syria gave Palmyra to the Islamic State. Well, that's ridiculous because they're taking it back now. Why would they even do this? This whole thing makes no sense. Why would they keep doing the same battle over and over? I mean, all these different stories makes no sense when you hear the other side. But of course, the corporate media is out there and you're only hearing one side. But when you hear that, no, they're taking it back, they're kicking kicking the Islamic State out, the Russian forces are coming in, and they're making huge headway to take Palmyra back. Now, if we remember back, it was the United States that was bombing in this area of Palmyra, which allowed the Islamic State to move back into there. Now, we see something very strange going on in northern Syria. Now, we know that Turkey wants more of the area. And we see the United States, they are setting up a base in Manbij. And what is happening right now is that it looks like they're preparing for some type of safe zones. Now, is this in coordination with Russia and Syria? Not really. And we can see right now that General Joseph Votel, he is out there saying that, yes, we're looking at safe zones in Syria. And he's saying that it would work once we bring in the ground troops and other resources are in place. And it looks like what they're doing right now is they're setting it up and preparing for these safe zones. And he's saying that this would be a viable concept. Now, remember back to the think tank where their whole entire plan was to set up these safe zones, these no-fly zones. Now, the Islamic State, they don't have jet fighters. So why they need a no-fly zone makes no sense. The only sense it makes is that they wanted to ground and get rid of all the fighters from the Syrian armed forces. And we can see right now that we don't know for sure that they're coordinating with Russia and Syria on these safe zones, because Russia did say for these safe zones to work, the Syrian armed forces, they would need to control the areas, not the U.S. with all their ground troops. And again, we don't know what other resources they're talking about. We don't know how many ground troops. And most likely, if this is not coordinated with Russia and Syria, this could be a complete disaster. Now, we know the deep state, the central bankers, the neocons, they've been planning this for quite a while. They want to get rid of Assad. They have not stopped with trying to reach their goal. Now, they might be telling Trump one thing, but we know they support the Islamic State, they support Al-Qaeda, they support al-Nusra, they support al-Sham, they support the moderate rebels. We know that Trump stopped funding the moderate rebels. He told CIA, stop the funding. But we can see there's other back channels of covert money coming into the system. It's not just one area where it comes in, and that's from the government. They have it coming in from other dark places where they bring this money in from the poppy fields in Afghanistan, where they sell opium around the world. Drug money, which they can bring in. I mean, it was much easier when they were stealing the oil from Syria and using that, but that is drying up right now. But we can see that they're not going to stop trying to reach their goal. Now we see the USS Bataan. Well, that left Norfolk and it is heading towards the Middle East right now. And this entire amphibious fleet is moving into the region. Now we have other ships there, and we can see that something is being planned. Now we know that Trump wants to get the Islamic State. He wants to fight the Islamic State. But the only way to do this is with the Syrian government and Russia. Remember, the United States is in Syria illegally. The United States government central bankers invaded Syria. They were not invited like Russia. Completely different. And the only way to really remove terrorism in this country is to coordinate. So far, we're not seeing this. Now, these generals and these other individuals, CIA, might be telling Trump one thing and they might be doing another all at the same time. And we know that their entire plan, well, nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is their timetable now. It looks like they're basically looking at the situation, seeing where we are with the economy, seeing how they can get the war started, and all their plans that they had before, well, they're still in the works. They haven't stopped. And just because Trump is president doesn't mean things aren't happening in the background. Remember, he does not really run the country. He's not really in charge right now. Yes, he can do a lot of the surface stuff. Yes, he can create executive orders. He can repeal Obamacare. But while the corporate media is keeping everyone mesmerized by their fake news and telling everyone what Trump is doing, what executive orders are being leaked out, other things are happening in the background. And the deep state, the central bankers, the neocons, they're preparing for certain events. They're preparing for what is coming. And we talked about this in the past. Nothing has changed. They are still going to bring down the system, either through a cyber attack, through a war. However they're going to do it, their plans are still set. They're still going to hit the power infrastructure to cause this great event. And of course, what they're going to do is most likely they're going to blame it on Trump somehow, some way, because he's the perfect scapegoat at this time. And we have to remember, when the grid goes down, and I do believe back in 2003, when they brought the eastern coast down, this was a test to see if they could do it out in California, where the power went down and there was some type of incident out in the power grid there. These are all examples of them preparing and testing and seeing how this is going to work. Now remember, they're not going to bring down the entire country all at once. That would be ridiculous. No one would hear the news. What they're going to do is they're going to bring down pockets of certain areas. And when the power goes out, you need to be prepared. When the bank holiday happens, you need to be prepared. Everyone thinks at this point that everything's all better. Everything is fine. Trump is president. He's going to make everything okay. This is furthest from the truth. The economy is not better. The deep state, the central bankers, they're still in charge. They understand the system cannot be sustained. They've been pushing for a war for many years, moving in military assets, preparing and getting ready. They understand they'll need an event to push this forward, and they're getting ready to do this. And remember, when the power goes down and when the banking system is cyber attacked, and when they declare bank holidays, commerce will cease. It's going to cease anyhow because the credit market is going to freeze up. Why not time this with an event to blame it on another country? This is what they're going to do. It's the perfect scenario for them. And we can see at this point that they can say Trump is putting forth his economic plans. They're going to have to wait for the later part of this year. They can say the economy is deteriorating, things aren't going well, and as the economy falls apart and rapidly falls apart, they can bring in the cyber attacks, bring in the bank holiday, and say Trump was responsible. Russia, North Korea, Iran, China took advantage of it and brought down the rest. And this is why we're having bail-ins right now. This is why we're in a bank holiday right now. And when this does happen, it's going to be a complete disaster. Even without that, as a cover-up, it's going to be a complete disaster. Because when the bank holiday occurs, you will not be able to get funds out of the bank. If they bring down certain power grid to prove that we need to go to war, well, food's going to run out very quickly. Running water is going to stop. The clean water is not going to be clean. And we can see at this point, this is going to be a huge problem across the country. And what we're seeing right now is this huge buildup, this huge illusion to make everyone feel comfortable that everything is fine, because they cannot blame anything on Trump right now because it's too early. They need to wait. And this is why when we look at Charles Nenner, we look at Harry Dent, when we look at Cliff High, when we look at Mark Faber, when we look at all these individuals, they're all pointing to the same time frame. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.